Good morning, Weatherford. This is Jim Gibson on the Master Builder Show, sponsored by the First National Bank of Weatherford. I don't even know what I'm doing this morning. I don't know. I didn't have enough coffee, I guess. Anyway, I'm a registered builder in the state of Texas and a graduate Master Builder certified by the National Association of Home Builders. I'm a member of the National Association of Home Builders Research Council and on the Green Building Council. Today's topic is going to be foundations for Texas. And when we build houses out here, the most important thing you can do is build a solid foundation. I've got some guests here today. My wife, Jane Gibson, with Gibson Home Builders Incorporated. And I've also got Brian Gaylord with Pier Engineering and Consulting. And they specialize in foundations. Good morning, Brian. How are you?
Good morning. How are you this morning?
I'm doing super. How about yourself, Gene?
I'm going to be good today.
Oh, you are?
I'm not going to ask you. Last week we were supposed to talk about foundations, and I just had a lot of questions.
Oh,
but
great.
We're in the throes of building our Weatherford house.
Uh-huh.
And this is the last house. Yes, Jim?
Yeah.
This
I
is
heard
our
that
last
before.
house. Yeah, I have too.
House.
It's always the last house. But he's decided it's to be the perfect house.
Of course.
And obviously we have to start with a good solid foundation.
Exactly.
For my craftsman house, I had to get that in there.
Craftsman house, right. Anyway, if y'all need to check out a builder or remodeler, you can go to my website at www.masterbuildershow.com. Click on it, click into my homepage, and click on TRCC, and you can check out your builders and remodelers there. And the function for a residential foundation is to support the structure, and that's why you want to make it as solid a foundation as possible. Tell us a little bit about what you do, Brian.
Well, normally what happens is we have a home designer or an individual client come in who is interested in building a house. We also do house plans, so we can help out both in the house plan department and in the structural foundation department. Normally what happens is somebody will bring in a house plan, and they'll ask us, sometimes they'll say they know what they want.
Right.
I want a post-tension foundation, or I want a standard conventional foundation.
And you're going to define those things as the morning goes by?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
okay.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do most of them have a soil analysis? Do they bring in a soil analysis for you?
No, I would probably say that it's 50-50. Most of the time, I would have to say that they probably don't. They rely on the engineer to determine what type of slab to put onto their property.
Well, see, in my opinion, that's a mistake.
It is.
If you don't have a soil analysis done, you have no idea what's under the ground at your location. And even if you're building houses side by side, I do a soil analysis on every site.
Well, you spend hundreds of thousands of dollars possibly on a house and don't do a soil report for that slab. You're kind of gambling. You don't know how long that slab is going to last. You don't know what's underneath. The soils in this area alone, say from the Arlington area to Mineral Wells, vary so drastically.
Oh, yeah.
That it's you have to do a soil report. I suggest a soil report for every foundation that we do. The soils can change every 250 feet.
Right.
Or even closer.
Yeah, and what we're doing, we're talking about a soil report. And what they do to get the soil report is they send people out, and they've got a machine that actually bores down, and they will pick a couple of spots on your slab, usually in opposing corners. Mm-hmm. They will drill down to 20 feet, and they will give you a breakdown of the first 5 foot, and then every 5 foot after that up to the 20-foot level. And they will give you what are they looking for?
They're looking for the different types of soils that are underneath the topsoil, like solid rock, fractured limestone, sandstone, clay.
So what difference does it make what's down there? I'm putting a piece of concrete on top of the dirt. What difference does it make?
Well, the thing is we're in Texas, our soils are so expansive, and what I mean by expansive is when they dry, they shrink. When they get moist, they swell. And so you got potential movement there, and what they're doing, they're giving you a plasticity index and will tell you how much movement you have in your soil annually.
That's what plasticity means.
Well, yeah, it deals with how much clay content you've got, how much sand you've got.
But this is a piece of concrete.
Oh, it's a piece of concrete, but you're putting it on a moving object.
So won't it move intact?
If you had a 2 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot piece of concrete,
right,
and you put it in the ground,
okay,
it'll never crack. Probably safe to say that it'll never crack. However, when you take an 80-foot long by 60-foot wide piece of concrete, you're spreading it out over a longer area. So what may expand over in one area may be different than what it expands in another area, and that's where you get your cracking. One thing I also need to say is every foundation in Texas, in this area at least, will show cracking. But we can, by designing the slab correctly, we can limit that to basically cosmetic cracking.
That's a characteristic of the concrete?
Yes.
Hold that thought there for a minute. We've got to take a break. We're coming up on our first break. We'll be back here in a few minutes.
Did you know that some of the best home builders in the entire nation are right here in Parker County? Hello, everyone. This is Lynn Bearden, president of First National Bank of Weatherford. Our lenders believe your family deserves the best when it comes to your dream home. First National Bank is proud to support the Master Builder Show on QXFM. First National Bank in Weatherford has been building homes in Parker County since 1880. Member FDIC and an equal housing lender.
YourCircleOfWealth.com. A recent study by one of the world's largest financial institutions estimates that over 90% of baby boomers will not retire financially independent. We have prepared a financial report entitled Your Circle of Wealth. Learn how changing the way you manage your money can dramatically increase your wealth. To get a copy, you may go to www.yourcircleofwealth.com and enter the passcode Gibson, Gibson. That's yourcircleofwealth.com.
Fort Worth Lighting, serving Parker, Wise, Palo Pinto, and surrounding counties with a selection of interior and exterior lighting fixtures. They also have ceiling fans, mirrors, and vanities in all sizes. A lighting consultant will help you with your decisions. For an appointment with a Fort Worth Lighting consultant, the number is 817-597-6320, or the website is fortworthlighting.com. 817-597-6320 for Fort Worth Lighting.
North Texas Basements, 817-770-2768. With over 30 years of experience in residential construction, add extra living area, storm protection, and extra room that will be easy to heat and cool without needing a large piece of ground to build on. Think about having a basement in your next home. North Texas Basements, 817-770-BSMT or 817-770-2768. Gibson Home Builders Incorporated, 2401 Zion Hill Road, Weatherford, Texas, 682-429-2116. We specialize in homes to suit each and every individual that expects special attention. We help design, finance, and close on every home we build. We use green building techniques in all of our homes. You can contact Jim at masterbuildershow.com. Gibson Home Builders Incorporated, Weatherford, 682-429-2116. Welcome back to the Master Builder Show. I am your host, Jim Gibson. Today's show is sponsored by the First National Bank of Weatherford. My guest,
you know where you are now.
I know. I figured it out finally. My guests today are Gene Gibson with Gibson Home Builders Incorporated and Brian Gaylord. He's with Pier Engineering and Consulting. And we're talking about foundations today. And during the break, we were talking about it's scriptural even. You know, you build your house on solid foundation. And if you're going to save money, don't save it on your slab. I mean, spend the money it costs to build that slab and build it right.
Exactly, because just like you said, you want this to be the last house that you live in, and it's important that house lasts. You know, people spend a lot of money on these homes, and they need to last. They need to last, outlive the house itself.
Well, I try to build my house. You want to build a house to last for hundreds and hundreds of years. And here in Texas, the builder is responsible for the structure for a minimum of 10. And hopefully the houses that we built will last 1,000, if they take care of it.
See, I told you he's got this pyramid
Usually
mentality.
Usually it's opposite.
No. No. It's a Gibson mentality.
Yeah.
But the foundations don't. That's not true. We had in all our years we've had one foundation with one little problem. When we fixed it right away. But that was poured during the rain with an extreme drought afterward.
Yeah,
exactly.
I think it rained for 40 days and 40 nights, And
my goodness, he's on a scriptural mode this morning.
The customer was living in a travel trailer in front of the dwelling that we were building, and it just rained and it rained and it rained. And then we got it all in the dry and all this other stuff, and then it was the 100-year drought after that.
Mm-hmm.
And then, when it's raining, all your soil is swelling, and when it in the drought, it's shrinking.
Right.
And,
but you do you remember how many piers in that place?
I think we had 78 piers underneath it.
And one corner failed.
And it wasn't anybody's fault, actually.
Yeah.
It just happened.
Isn't that one of those acts of God, right?
Right. Yeah.
Stay with the scriptural thing.
It was easily fixed. It is guaranteed now for the millennium. So
for life.
Yeah. But you were saying, we keep interrupting about a good, solid foundation.
I did want to say was, even with a good foundation design, there's certain things that you have to do to take care of that slab. For instance, watering around the slab. You don't ever soak the soil around the slab. However, you have to keep it at one. Try to keep it at one consistent moisture level all the way around the slab, and it prevents the drying and the what am I trying to say here?
Motion in the soil, the expansion.
The expansion of the soil.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what we do, we build these things, and by code, you're supposed to put a 5-degree slope away from the house. And we try to build them where water will drain away from the house because you don't want it to stand around the house.
Right.
And we've got these little women that come out, and they want to pour sidewalk around the house, and they pour the sidewalk around the house, and they put flower beds in there. And what they're doing, they're creating a dam around the house.
But it's holding the moisture in that he wants to keep on the slab.
No, there's you get too much.
Right.
You can definitely get too much.
You don't want to pond it. But so what we do in our progress, the way we do it is if we put PVC pipes underneath the sidewalks and anything that's around the house to allow drainage away from the house, and that it avoids a lot of problems in the long run. Plus, if you need to run some wiring under there, you've already got pipe through there. We try to put the pipes about every 8 to 10 feet, and that way all the moisture.
He's learned a great
off.
deal from my habits.
Yeah. Years of experience, right?
Yes.
But tell me about foundations. Now, we're going to build a perfect house.
Okay.
So it will be super insulated. It will be craftsman style. The interior will be a bloodbath, so I get my way. We're nowhere close to a design.
Uh-huh.
But tell me about the best foundation we can do.
Well, the best foundation that you can do, first of all, starts out with soil report. That's where you find out what exactly is underneath there. You may find cases that you're only able to dig down 2 feet before you hit solid stone.
Mm-hmm.
In that case, for one, it's impossible to put piers in there without going through the solid stone. So in that case, the beams can be a little bit shorter. As long as you're sitting on solid stone, that's the ideal situation. However, being in this part of Texas, we know that there's very few ideal areas to build a home. Some cases, you might as well build them with pontoons. It's
that extreme.
Yes.
Well, we built one in Granbury that was down close to the water, and it was an ICF home, which is insulated concrete form. So you've got tremendous amount of weight on all the walls. And what we did, we hit water at 6 foot when we did the borings. So what the engineer prescribed was we had to go in there and remove 36 inches of soil all the way down to 36 inches. And then we came back in and put in a Marafi type fabric, which this is a porous fabric that it's rated, I think, at 350 PSI. And then we came back in with select fill. And you want to explain select fill to us?
Select fill is an engineered material, dirt, sand mixture, clay mixture, that when compacted is at a specific rating, like as far as moisture content, compaction. Engineered soil is the ideal material to use for putting a slab on. No matter where you build it, if you build on engineered soil, those are ideal conditions.
So it has a minimum of expansion and contraction in that dirt that you brought back in?
Correct.
Right.
And we've got to take another break, and we'll be back here. Yeah, we'll be back here in a couple of minutes.
Did you know that some of the best home builders in the entire nation are right here in Parker County? Hello, everyone. This is Lynn Bearden, president of First National Bank of Weatherford. Our lenders believe your family deserves the best when it comes to your dream home. First National Bank is proud to support the Master Builder Show on QXFM. First National Bank in Weatherford has been building homes in Parker County since 1880. Member FDIC and an equal housing lender.
Are you having a construction-related issue? Do you need a construction attorney? If so, you may call the law firm of Kelly M. Davis and Associates. Kelly's family background in the construction industry has led to her focus in construction litigation with over 9 years of experience practicing construction law in and around the metro area. For more information, you may visit www.kmdalegal.com or you may call 972-434-8009. That's 972-434-8009. Kelly M. Davis and Associates. Principal offices are located in Louisville, Texas.
Alamo Appliance, 100 South Riverside Drive in Fort Worth, has been dedicated to serving your needs in kitchen appliances for over 35 years. They offer JennAir, KitchenAid, Whirlpool, Maytag, Amana, and many others. Their experienced sales staff will help you make the right decisions at the right time. That's Alamo Appliance, 817-531-2701. Once again, that's Alamo Appliance, 817-531-2701.
Fort Worth Lighting, serving the building professional in Parker, Wise, Palo Pinto, and surrounding counties. Services include planned takeoff, site walkthrough, and delivery. For an appointment with a Fort Worth Lighting consultant, the number is 817-597-6320, or the website is fortworthlighting.com. Again, it's 817-597-6320 for Fort Worth Lighting.
Gibson Home Builders Incorporated, 2401 Zion Hill Road, Weatherford, Texas, 682-429-2116. We specialize in homes to suit each and every individual that expects special attention. We help design, finance, and close on every home we build. We use green building techniques in all of our homes. You can contact Jim at masterbuildershow.com. Gibson Home Builders Incorporated, Weatherford, 682-429-2116. Welcome back to the Master Builder Show. I am your host, Jim Gibson. Today's show is sponsored by the First National Bank of Weatherford. My guests today are Brian Gaylord with Pier Engineering and Consulting, and my wife, Jean Gibson, with Gibson Home Builders. And we're talking about foundations. Anyhow, we were talking about the different types of limestone that were in the area here. We've got solid limestone, we've got fractured limestone.
This started because I said if you did a drilling and you hit a limestone, as you said, you don't know if you're in the center of that piece of rock or on the edge.
That's right.
So that, now what do I do?
Well, that's the reason why they put the borings in opposing corners, because it allows you to give you a better idea of where the limestone, if it drops, it'll give you a better idea where that location is. One thing, a couple things that I really should say is, for one, you don't ever partially pier a slab, because what happens is if you embed the piers in, say, limestone, and then you have very expansive soil on the other side of the slab, then you're going to get your expansion there, and it can possibly crack the slab. So if you need to put a few in, then it'd be a good idea to contact the geotechnical engineer to find out if you should put all of them in for the whole slab. another thing that I was saying was the differences between limestone. There's fractured limestone, and then there's solid limestone.
Mm-hmm.
If you hit fractured limestone, and what that is it is limestone, but it's got cracks and voids and things like that in it. That needs to be, you need to get through the fractured limestone to get to the solid limestone, because you will have expansion in the fractured.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that
Yeah,
makes
well,
sense.
that's
That makes
possible.
sense. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The tests that they perform are like a dry density test, and what they're doing there, they compact the soil and measure its contraction, I guess, at different moisture level points. And then they've got optimum moisture content, which is a moisture content test, I suppose, that is based on what they do is they remove all the moisture from it by oven drying it, and then they sample the weight. And they can tell exactly how much moisture that
You do the
suck up.
differential before and
Yeah,
after.
Yeah, it's kind of like a sponge, and they weigh it wet and then they weigh it completely dry, and that's how much moisture it'll hold.
So we're back to my perfect foundation,
Okay.
and we're sitting on, heaven knows what that is up there,
It's
limestone.
perfect. It's perfect.
No, the foundation has to be perfect because
yeah.
the soil is not.
Yeah. All right. Well, if the foundation's got to be perfect, so it's
All right.
got to be sitting on a perfect piece of soil, right?
Right.
All right.
So
Solid
what do we
limestone.
have to do? Now what do we do? We're going to have to do a soil test.
We do a soil analysis. And
Over multiple areas.
That will determine what we have to do.
Right.
But you always put in those gutter things that you do. What do you call them?
Beams and footings.
Right.
It just depends on the type of slab.
Right. Usually what we end up specifying in our foundation designs are a 10 by 24 inch, 10 inch wide by 24 inch deep beams, spaced no further than 12 feet apart. Now, the Post-Tension Institute dictates that your beams are supposed to be no more than 15 feet apart. So we're going to beyond their specifications to make a more stiff slab than what they require.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when he's talking about a beam and a footing, what he's talking about is we're digging down in the soil.
Exactly.
And we're digging a trough, basically.
Right.
And it's going to be 24 inches deep, 10 inches wide.
Right in the body of the
Right.
house.
Well, you
Right.
put it throughout the slab. You put the footing.
It's like a waffle pattern.
Right. So if you can picture a waffle, that's what you're, and then it's called a waffle slab.
Right.
And your footing goes around the perimeters, and your beams go through the body of the slab itself. And what you're doing, it's kind of like if you're driving under one of these bridges they're made out of concrete that overpasses, and you look up, those are beams. Those are concrete beams. Basically, that's what you've got underneath your house if you're doing a waffle slab layout.
All right, and the footings, do they vary on the type of house you're putting? If a two-story house, a brick house.
Well, like I was saying, when we did this house in Granbury, what we did, piers were meaningless. I mean, you couldn't put piers. So what they did, they had me remove 36 inches of soil, and then we put down their Merapi fabric,
Right, you
and they brought in select fill, and we brought it in in 10-inch lifts. So we would bring it in and we spread it out 10 inches high. Then we brought I think this was a 10,000-pound compacting machine that vibrated, and we'd roll it back and forth, and we were compacting it to 95%.
You're getting approval over here. He's saying you did it right. Go
And
ahead.
then what we did, we went ahead and filled it all the way back in, and we actually had to bring it up 10 inches above grade. And then we had a compaction test done on it. So they come out and do a compaction test and tell us if it's compacted enough, and it was. But what we ended up doing there, we had no piers, but all our beams and footings were 2 foot wide, 2 foot deep.
Which is?
It was making it like pontoons.
Exactly.
And
And makes for a very stiff slab.
Right.
I would really be surprised. You may still get cosmetic cracks because that's just basically what concrete does. They don't go completely through the concrete. It's just the drying and the moisture content will cause it just to crack a little bit. And by saying cosmetic crack, it's probably nothing that you can slip a business card into. So they're very small. And the only time that those would ever really create a problem is if, say, you're doing a exposed concrete, stained concrete in a living room.
Oh, yeah. Everybody complains about the cracks, and now
they don't complain, but most of them prefer it.
It adds character.
Well, that's it.
Exactly.
The whole, politically correct spin on this is those character traits.
Well, we tell them it's all concrete cracks in Texas.
Exactly.
Pretty well done. And the more water you have in it when you pour it, the more it shrinks, and the more it shrinks, the more it cracks.
That's right.
So you try to pour your concrete as dry as possible. That's the reason I like to see them. I like to see them when they're pouring that stuff. I like to see it. I mean, it's coming out like thick mud.
Right. And you really need to go with somebody that you're familiar with, or someone that your builder's familiar with, because just experience dealing with those people for a certain amount of time will give you a little more.
You're talking about the concrete companies?
The concrete companies.
They all have different styles?
Well, what you do, you tell them what slump you want, what they call a slump.
And what's a slump?
And it's the amount of moisture. And what they do, they take a cone, fill it full of concrete, flip it upside down, pull the form off of it, and measure the length of time it takes to slump.
To fall down.
And the faster it slumps, the more water you got in it. And, of course, it's easier to pour wet concrete. I mean, you shoots out of the truck, it's self-leveling, but the problem is the more moisture, it has to dry out to cure. And as it's drying, then all the moisture is vacating the concrete, and as it's vacating, it is shrinking. And while it's shrinking, if it's shrinking too fast or too much, then you have a lot of cracks. And so the drier the mix, the better.
Exactly.
But we've got, they also got other
I don't think you ever answered my question about that footing, though.
What was your question?
We were talking, you explained about the house in Granbury, but does the slab have to be different if I'm going to do a 2-story house? Can a slab for a 1-story house suddenly support a 2-story if we decide to raise the roof? You see that in all the remodel shows.
Well, we normally do for one floor structure is 10 inches by 24-inch beams. Mm-hmm. What we've been doing more and more lately is 12 inches wide by 24 inches deep. My job in designing these slabs is to minimize cracking on the slab, and to be quite frank, to keep my engineer out of court.
Yeah, good point.
And so what makes him happy is also going to benefit the client. Mm-hmm. The stiffer that we can make this slab, the better we're going to be. However, there is a point where it becomes too expensive. Exactly. And too expensive for the client. So there's a happy medium in there that we reach, and one of those mediums is the 12-inch wide by 24-inch deep beam. Mm-hmm. The slab depth is only 4 inches. However, I've been having clients come in say they want 5 inches on their porches, which my engineer definitely wouldn't complain about. Mm-hmm. So it varies a great deal, and what it all boils down to is what the soil report says. If someone were to call in and say, "Hey, I have this situation, what kind of slab do I build?" The first thing that I would have to say is, what does the soil say? Because you cannot make a determination sitting 20 miles away from their property. So,
and you'd be surprised how many builders go out there and just trust the concrete guys, say, pour me a slab.
Exactly.
And you need to actually know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I would say, like you said, about 50-50 on builders out there that engineer the slabs and don't engineer the slabs, and it's a mistake. I mean, it's like gambling. I mean, it's like putting whatever the house costs is what you're gambling, because if you get a structural failure, within that 10-year period, actually within 11 years, because they've got a year after your 10 years runs up to come back and take you to court. And, you're going to have to buy that house back at fair market value. So,
what kind of failures do you see, though?
Well, if you,
I mean, what we've all we saw when that pier failed in that one house was there were little hairline cracks in the walls and a door didn't shut right. Mm-hmm. That was it. So that's the extent of what you're looking at when the slab fails?
Well, that is only
that's part of it.
That's only part of it, because the cracking in the doors and the windows, the walls above doors and windows, doesn't necessarily mean it's the slab. You also have to look at the framing that was done. There's a few things that you can look at besides the slab. So just because you see a crack in your wall does not necessarily mean the slab failed.
Correct, because when we build these houses, we build them in inclement weather. And it might be raining one day, and it might be dry and 105 degrees one day. And what happens is you're building this house, and depending on what the weather is doing at the time you get it in the dry, a lot of times you will get it in the dry, so you've actually trapped moisture in the house, so the lumber's wet. And as you get in the house and start using your HVAC systems, turn on your air conditioning, your heating systems, then you're starting to dehumidify the house, and you're drying out the lumber. And, of course, like anything else, when you're drying it out, it is shrinking. So as it dries out, you may, especially in your trim, crown molding and your baseboards and stuff like that, you can tell how wet the lumber is, a year after. You can tell how wet the lumber was when they built the house a year after, because you're going to have to go back in, and they caulked it and sealed it and made it look pretty, made it look like it was molded in place, and then a year later you've got an 1/8 of an inch gap.
Wow.
Because the lumber, and it's only natural that the lumber has shrunk that much, and your job is to go back in and caulk her back up and repaint it. And it will finally reach a point that it won't shrink anymore.
Right. And, people want, when they build a house, they want a perfect house. They don't, they have a vision in their mind how they want their house, and they want to last like that forever. I know I would. But what a lot of, especially new homeowners, don't realize is things like this happen. There's a lot of things that come into play when you're building a new house. The moisture at the time that the house was built, grading on the property, which way the property slopes. There's a lot of things that come into play that can affect how the house performs.
That's the reason we normally tell them, right? I normally tell my people that move into my new homes, if you're in the summertime, cut that sucker for the first month. You want that cooling unit to run pretty well consistent. I mean, I want their bill to be up there the first month, because I want them to dry out the house. Mm-hmm. I want everything to shrink as much as it's going to shrink that first month or so.
Oh, so you can come back in.
So I can come back in and look at it and do any, probably not even within a month. Usually we check back 6 months later, 6 months to a year, and come back in and do a punch-out list.
Well, that's great, because, some builders don't do that, and I would have to say a majority of them really don't do that. That is also a sign of a good builder is after the sale.
Yeah, how well you maintain it.
Exactly.
And how readily available you are. I know a lot of people out there, a lot of builders, that you can't get in touch with them.
Exactly.
And I am readily accessible to all my clients.
His cell phone's the number that's published, and it's sutured to his hand.
Yeah, I did that one time, and
it works, though. Yeah. I have moments I resent the phone ringing, but it's worked for us to be available. And Jim is a frustrated teacher. So he likes to inform the client. It also makes life easier if you educate your client about what to expect. But I still didn't hear an answer to is the slab different for a 2-story than it is a 1-story?
I'm sorry, I keep forgetting that. Well, for a 1-story, we normally do a 10-inch by 12-inch. However, we're moving to do a 12-inch by 24-inch. I'm sorry, right. 24 inches deep. And then for a 2-story, we do 12 inches wide by 24 inches deep.
So I can't change it at the last minute.
So,
not wisely.
No. To suddenly add a second floor.
Well, like I said, the normal standard up until, for our company anyways, for the last 3 months, I guess, has been, up until 3 months ago, 10 inches by 24 inches. So in the last 3 months, we bumped it up to 24 inches wide by 20.
No, 12 inches wide by 24 inches deep.
Man.
Write it down.
I need to write this down.
Write it on the palm of your old nurse trick. Write it on the palm of your hand.
Exactly.
But the house with this smaller edge.
Mm-hmm.
See, I want a loft, a second floor.
Mm-hmm.
He wants everything on one
She
floor.
wants more to heat and cool.
So I may put my pen through his palm in a second. So that's why I wanted to know at the last minute, can I change this to a 2-story plan? At 10 years from now, can I go back in and add a second floor?
The look you just gave me, I don't know if
Oh, no. That's why this is not going to be a quick job.
Well, the only way I would move into another 2-story house is if it had an elevator.
Feel free.
I'm too old to climb stairs.
Oh, please. Yeah. Oh, please. It's good exercise.
Yeah.
All right. So the bottom line is, that's the other thing, too. With a remodel job, adding a second floor, they better call you first. Check out that slab. See if it'll take a second floor.
Well, the only way you could do that would be doing a core sample of the slab itself and figure out.
Yeah, they have different ways.
Yeah.
That's not where you are, though. That's not what you do?
No. When we do our slabs, we give out 6 copies of the slab design to our client. One is to keep for themselves, for their records, and then the other one goes to the concrete people, the homeowners, whoever it goes to. So it's a good thing to keep in your records because it tells exactly where everything is located.
Tells where your beams are.
For future.
Exactly.
For future, yeah.
And another thing that I would suggest is a pre-pour inspection.
Right.
The engineer who does the slab can send a representative out to take a look at that slab and verify that it's built in accordance with their design. Mm-hmm. So later on, there's no surprises. They don't cut a strand or anything like that.
We've got to take another break. We'll be back here in a couple of minutes.
Did you know that some of the best home builders in the entire nation are right here in Parker County? Hello, everyone. This is Lynn Bearden, president of First National Bank of Weatherford. Our lenders believe your family deserves the best when it comes to your dream home. First National Bank is proud to support the Master Builder Show on QXFM. First National Bank in Weatherford has been building homes in Parker County since 1880. Member FDIC and an equal housing lender.
Are you looking for a law firm with an understanding of the construction industry? Kelly M. Davis & Associates experience includes home inspections, construction contracts, disputes with builders, and helping subcontractors or vendors that have not been paid for their services. For more information, you may visit www.kmdalegal.com or you may call 972-434-8009. That's 972-434-8009.
Kelly M. Davis & Associates. Principal offices are located in Lewisville, Texas. Croft Foam Insulation and Protective Coatings has over 25 years of experience in the spray foam business, serving residential, commercial, and industrial clients. Croft Foam specializes in open and closed cell polyurethane foam applications to construction, refrigerated trailers, and even castles. Croft Foam is a Fort Worth-based company. You may reach them by calling 817-482-1664 or email at foamman@swbell.net.
Fort Worth Lighting, serving Parker, Wise, Palo Pinto, and surrounding counties with a selection of interior and exterior lighting fixtures. They also have ceiling fans, mirrors, and vanities in all sizes. A lighting consultant will help you with your decisions. For an appointment with a Fort Worth Lighting consultant, the number is 817-597-6320 or the website is fortworthlighting.com. 817-597-6320 for Fort Worth Lighting.
Gibson Home Builders Incorporated, 2401 Zion Hill Road, Weatherford, Texas, 682-429-2116. We specialize in homes to suit each and every individual that expects special attention. We help design, finance, and close on every home we build. We use green building techniques in all of our homes. You can contact Jim at masterbuildershow.com. Gibson Home Builders Incorporated, Weatherford, 682-429-2116. Welcome back to the Master Builder Show. I am your host, Jim Gibson. Today's show is sponsored by the First National Bank of Weatherford. My guests today are Brian Gaylord with Pier Tech Engineering and Consulting, my wife, Jean Gibson, with Gibson Home Builders, and we're talking about foundations. We were talking during the break.
I lost another point.
Another point. The perfect foundation is one that is not all cut up.
That's right.
Well, not cut up. It's it's aesthetically pleasing to have all the jut outs and the little rooms off to the side and the bump outs. And you said our perfect slab is what?
That is very aesthetically
rectangle.
pleasing.
Yes, it is. But
However,
here we go.
The ideal situation is a rectangle.
So you can do any kind of design you want as long as it's
it's a rectangle.
Yeah.
Or a circle. You can make a circle.
Like a circle?
Yeah.
Circle.
If you really want to drive the post-tension guys crazy, do it that way.
Our slab in Arlington on the lake was post-tension.
Mm-hmm.
I never quite understood why.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about post-tension? Now, we did a post-tension waffle slab.
Right. And there's not a big, as great a difference between a post-tension slab and a conventional slab as people think. The difference is a post-tension slab has tendons that are put through the beam, the upper part of the beam and the lower part of the beam, and then throughout the field of the slab that runs across your floor.
Right.
And they're half-inch cables. And what happens is, after the concrete has had a chance to cure, they come back in and they pull one end of those tendons, and it creates tension. What that does is, if you, first of all, it holds the slab together. So you don't have the cracking and...
what did they put, about 80,000 PSI on them?
It's...
40,000 PSI?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure.
Anyway,
we don't do the post-tensioning, actually. We have a couple clients that we call does the post-tensioning.
I've read all the horror stories on those things about the porches flipping up and, that there was too much tension.
That's over-tensioned, right?
Yeah.
Over-tensioned and not
it
actually put in right. I mean, you've got...
it was too close to the surface. There's a lot to it.
If you know what you're doing, they're great. Mm-hmm. If you don't know what you're doing, they can be a nightmare, because if you've got your cables laid in there before you tension them, and you go ahead and pour the concrete, and you've got a dip in that cable, like a drip loop or whatever, where they didn't actually pull those, straighten those cables out, and they poured it. Well, it dried that way, say. All right, then they come back in, put 40,000 pounds or whatever pressure on it. Well, that little loop that comes down has to go somewhere eventually.
Goes up.
So as you put that pressure on there, it's like a bowstring, and you're pushing up at that point on that concrete. Well, most of the time the concrete will give, and so you got a blowout.
It's also, I can compare it a little bit to the bridges that go over highways. You see how they're bowed up because they're post-tension, which means the more weight you put on them, it doesn't lose its strength. Had it been concave in the other direction, it'll bear very little weight. So some people swear by post-tension, but some people swear by conventional. They have their own ideas in their mind which one that they prefer.
They're both excellent slabs if done right.
Well, there's the operative term, though, isn't this? There's more artistry to a slab than people are giving it credit for.
Yeah,
Exactly.
you don't just go out and pour concrete on the ground.
Right.
I mean, there is a method to it, and there's a reason for the method. And depending on how well your house will stand for many years depends on how good you are.
Right.
And as we've said 1,000 times, too, this is so regional. We're getting a lot of people now that are coming out here from California.
Right.
And you said
Used
you were
to basements and things like that.
Oh, absolutely. You said you were from Chicago.
If they're built right. Basements are one of the best foundations you can build if they're built right.
Operative term.
But one of the problems with creating basements in this area is you don't have a lot of engineers who have the experience who have built basements before or walkouts. So I've done several, but I'm not from these parts. And they do work. They work very well. The biggest problem is when you put in a basement, sometimes you hit solid rock.
Yeah.
So
that was a concern. We had North Texas Basements on. They're one of our advertisers. And I picked his brain because I like the idea of the ambient temperature. I like the idea of tornado, a tornado shelter out here, bad weather shelter. But that's the kicker. We're sitting on limestone.
It's just a lot of money to excavate.
But we need a good slab to settle this argument. Since you've blown it, and I'm not going to get all my bump outs, I'm going to have to build. A circle's really hard to live with. Yeah. Furniture doesn't tend to be circular in nature, and so I have to design a house. Ideal house has to be a rectangle. Why not a square?
It can be a square.
A square
okay.
Also.
Okay.
Rectangle, square,
just
circle,
so that you
triangle.
don't have any weak spots.
You can
were
make
saying.
a triangle.
Yeah.
Except your corners might break off.
Yeah, and you can have bump outs and things like that. But, you asked what the ideal situation is, and that is it.
Okay.
Not to say that, we've done them hundreds of times, these slabs that have all the bump outs and everything like that.
But those are weak spots, you said. More like potentially a crack spot.
Right, because it varies on how narrow it gets before it gets to the main body of the house.
We got to take another break. We'll be back here in just a couple of minutes.
Did you know that some of the best home builders in the entire nation are right here in Parker County? Hello, everyone. This is Lynn Bearden, president of First National Bank of Weatherford. Our lenders believe your family deserves the best when it comes to your dream home. First National Bank is proud to support the Master Builder Show on QXFM. First National Bank in Weatherford has been building homes in Parker County since 1880. Member FDIC and an equal housing lender.
Are you having a construction-related issue? Do you need a construction attorney? If so, you may call the law firm of Kelly M. Davis and Associates. Kelly's family background in the construction industry has led to her focus in construction litigation with over 9 years of experience practicing construction law in and around the metro area. For more information, you may visit www.kmdalegal.com or you may call 972-434-8009. That's 972-434-8009. Kelly M. Davis and Associates. Principal offices are located in Lewisville, Texas. Croft Foam Insulation and Protective Coatings has over 25 years of experience in the spray foam business, serving residential, commercial, and industrial clients. Croft Foam specializes in open and closed cell polyurethane foam applications to construction, refrigerated trailers, and even castles. Croft Foam is a Fort Worth-based company. You may reach them by calling 817-482-1664 or email at foamman@swbell.net.
Alamo Appliance, 100 South Riverside Drive in Fort Worth, has been dedicated to serving your needs in kitchen appliances for over 35 years. They offer Genair, KitchenAid, Whirlpool, Maytag, Amana, and many others. Their experienced sales staff will help you make the right decisions at the right time. That's Alamo Appliance, 817-531-2701. Once again, that's Alamo Appliance, 817-531-2701.
Gibson Home Builders Incorporated, 2401 Zion Hill Road, Weatherford, Texas, 682-429-2116. We specialize in homes to suit each and every individual that expects special attention. We help design, finance, and close on every home we build. We use green building techniques in all of our homes. You can contact Jim at masterbuildershow.com. Gibson Home Builders Incorporated, Weatherford, 682-429-2116. Welcome back to the Master Builder Show. I am your host, Jim Gibson. Today's show is sponsored by the First National Bank of Weatherford. My guests today are Brian Gaylord with Pier Tech Engineering and Consulting, my wife, Jean Gibson, with Gibson Home Builders. We're talking about foundations, and we were talking during the break about pier or not to pier. Correct?
That is the question.
That is the question. How do you determine piers are put in a slab for particular reasons, and they're not always for the same reason. I mean, you put them in to hold the house down to keep it from rising. You put them in sometimes to keep the house from sinking. What are all the reasons, and what are the different types of? Well, there's a bunch of
all
reasons.
the reasons.
Yeah, if you've got fill. Usually, if you've got more than 36 inches of fill, you want a pier.
You want to get through the fill.
You want to get through the fill to undisturbed ground.
Exactly.
So anytime you're building a pad and the pad, say, has a 3-foot drop or 4-foot drop at one end, and you're having to bring in loose fill and compact it, you want to actually pier it down below whatever you brought in.
Well, Jim, also how old the fill is.
Right.
If your fill is 10 years old or 5 years old, then basically
it is already compacted.
Some engineers can consider it undisturbed soil. So in that case, maybe you don't need to go through the fill. However, all these questions can be answered by doing a soil report.
We're back to the basics.
Back to the basics. Yeah,
that's
number one thing when building a foundation is do your research.
Exactly.
And know what you're building on. I mean, they were building the highway. I guess it was 35 south. I think it was 35 south, going down. They were boring. They bored test holes to put the street on or the highway on.
Yeah.
Well, they had the drill bit fall through, and and they discovered interspace caverns. So, a good thing they did their boring.
No kidding.
Because they were over a very large cavern.
I didn't know that. That's fascinating.
And so just like we don't bore that deep as far as...
But I want you to do that. Maybe we've got a cave underneath where we're going to build our house.
There's your basement.
Maybe a little construction.
That would settle it. And I can sell tickets. The other thing you mentioned that it never occurred to me was that on a river, you put in piers that had a bell bottom.
Well, it all depends on the soil. And in some cases, the foundation may call for what's called a bell pier, which is a straight shaft pier that bells out at the bottom. And it's to keep, depending on what soil is in between that bell and the foundation, it's to steady the pier so that it doesn't raise or lower.
Sink. Yeah.
Right.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
And we were also saying that how very regional foundations are.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
and I'm just giving general explanations for certain things, but a geotechnical engineer is who is in charge of reading the soil reports and making the determination, and then giving me the determination, and then I design the slab based off of his recommendations. So it's pretty technical. There's a lot of things that people don't understand.
But you're more than willing to explain. There's no secrets here.
No secrets.
Excellent.
All right, Brian, why don't you tell us a little bit about your company, how people can get in touch with you?
Okay. All right.
Who are you? What are you?
Our company is called Pier Tech Engineering and Consulting. We're out of Aledo, Texas, 208 South Front Street. And our number, we can be reached at 817-441-1742. I can be.
You have a website?
No, we're still working on it.
Still working on the website.
We're kind of new here.
Yeah.
All right, we got to wrap up the show this week. We'll see you next Tuesday, same time, same place.
Thank you, Brian.